All right, what I've got for you today is the recap of the Bears draft picks under ryanpoles as we move into the new draft season. The Super Bowl's this weekend, and then it's all going to be about the Combine and the NFL draft and the transitions we made. This will be part one of this. This will cover 2002, and next part will be 2003. But to start this one off, this is why we had a little bit of a lack of draft picks. This is just part of it. This is the one decision I did agree with Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace really hemorrhaged the future for the now. But Justin Fields was anticipated to be as high as the second overall pick, and he was a high caliber draft pick quarterback prospect. A lot of dissension on what people think now 3 years later, but we'll just talk about back then. He was a very highly touted draft pick. And the Bears held the 20th overall pick. They traded up to the 11th spot to pick him on draft day in the 2021 draft, and that ended up giving away our first and fourth rounders in 2022. Not a horrible trade considering you're getting your franchise quarterback. Now, where we are now, that's the debatable part where everyone argues about, but this is why we lacked a first and a fourth round pick as ryanpoles came into the picture. ryanpoles was hired on January 25th, 2022, and the draft picks he inherited when he did get to the team, he only had 5 of them, and none of them were the true top of the draft, your first rounders. The first pick he had was second round, 39th overall. So that's what he was dealing with when he walked into the situation. The salary cap was not in great place either, especially since we had a rookie quarterback. It should have been a lot better than where it was. So we'll go through the first year's draft of what he ended up doing. But before we got to the draft, on March 10th, 2022, we ended up trading away Khalil Mack. Part of that was to get rid of some of that salary cap. He had 3 years, $63.9 million remaining. And part of this trade included, because sometimes when you trade picks, part of the salary cap has to go towards dead cap from the team that's trading them. Part of this pick, the important part of that, so it's the first move ryanpoles really made. This was his first big splash, the first thing that he did was trading Khalil Mack. And there's a lot of scrutiny over this, but he got the Chargers to take their entire $63.9 million remaining contract with him, and that's important for where we are today, 2 years later from that. Here we are in 2024, and we're in great salary cap shape, and we've got a plethora of salary or of draft picks because of what ryanpoles has done. So what he ended up getting in return was a 48th overall and a 2023 sixth-round pick. Some people feel like we should have gotten more, but that's without understanding the entire situation. We didn't eat any dead cap on the Khalil Mack trade. And yes, we gave up a lot to get Khalil Mack, 2 first-rounders. We gave up a ton to get him, but the reality is we were in a whole different scenario when ryanpoles took over, so it was basically rebuilding from that point. And we were in rebuild mode. And so not a horrible trade, in my opinion. I think we could have done a little bit better, but getting them to eat the entire salary cap, that was a good portion for us. All right, so we get into the trade. And here's the trades that occurred. We'll go through these semi-quickly. The Bears ended up trading down several times, so we'll get to the nut and bolts of those, but here's some of what the Bears traded away. Traded away 148 to get 168 and 203 from the Bills. Traded away 150 to get 166 and 207 from the Texans. Then we ended up trading 166 to get 174 and 226. Guys, this is like your mock draft simulator type stuff that ryanpoles was pulling off in the trade. We only had 5 picks. Ended up getting a 6th and a future one from the Khalil Mack deal. And then at the very end of the draft, he traded away his 6th rounder, 2023. Essentially giving a 6th rounder away to the Chargers for 2 7th rounders this year. Now, when you stack that up, that's not great value, but what we ended up doing with those 2 picks at the end of this draft ended up being semi-decent for us. But here's your mock draft simulator, what he ended up doing. Traded away 5 148, 5 150, which was the Texans pick that we had acquired earlier. We're not going that far back to get in details of what, but we had 5, and 2 of those were these 2, and a future 6, and he traded those 3 picks into 7 picks in this draft. And none of them are high-value picks. They're all 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. So it's not like you're expecting to have long-term starters. But this is where we were in trying to rebuild the roster. This helps you understand why the Bears have been in such a bad position, why it's been such a struggle for us. The players we end up picking with those are, as you see on the screen, the high-value ones, those second-rounders. Kyler Gordon was our own pick. 248 was the pick we got for trading Khalil Mack, and both of those guys are starters to this day. So Kyler Gordon is a starting nickel for us. Jaquan Brisker is starting strong safety. Velus Jones. Now, this one gets a lot of scrutiny, but when you look at the draft class of 2022, it wasn't a super deep draft class. There was some really high top-end value. There was Drake London that was picked. There was Garrett Wilson that was picked. James Williams, who ended up getting eternally injured. Jahan Dotson was highly rated. Treylon Burks was highly rated, but those guys were all first-rounders. Then you get into the second round. Christian Watson ended up being a really good pick for the Packers, because that was in the second round. And we had such important needs on defense that we picked defensive players that I don't regret at all. So we can scrutinize Ryan Poles a little bit, and he hasn't made the best picks with wide receivers. And we can also say the same thing about Claypool, but if you look at Claypool, why did we acquire Claypool? Because we had absolutely butt kiss. I've gone through that in my other video about how bad the Bears wide receiver room is. But acquiring Claypool, that was a move because he had to make some kind of move for a wide receiver. And there was really nothing else out there on the free agent market or in the draft. I mean, you can say we could have gotten Romeo Doubs. The Packers picked him up in the 4th round, and actually that was a great pick for them. But you're getting into semantics of scrutiny right there, because everyone around Velus Jones didn't do much more than Velus Jones did. There's Jalen Tolbert that the Cowboys got. He hasn't done much. David Bell from the Browns, Danny Gray from the 49ers, and then Eric Ekunama. Honestly, I'm not even up to date with him on the Dolphins. I don't even know who that is. So is he still with the Dolphins? I have no clue. So these are the guys that were taken around Velus Jones. And Velus Jones, at the end of the year, I see us making a neat little niche for him if we can get him in some backfield sets where he comes out of motion and he does some Deebo Samuel type of stuff. I mean, it'd be neat to see him get a few more runs, because with Getsy, one of those worked, and okay, let's not go back to it again. Let's never do that again, because it worked. So I do see us being able to use Velus in a different role. I don't see him as your typical standard wide receiver. I see him more on returns when his hands have gotten more stable. He's not dropping as much, and some more of those Deebo Samuel, Cordarrelle Patterson type of sweeps and backfield motion type of run, jet sweep type of stuff. I'd like to see some more out of that. So I give Ryan Poles a solid B- on this one. Only because there's some things that could have gone a little bit differently, but really those are tick-tacky at the end of the draft. What he did with this draft class, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, and Braxton Jones, especially in the 5th round, I think he did a really, really good job. So maybe I should be a little more lenient and give him a B+, A-. But some of these guys at the end, Doug Kramer, Ja'Tyre Carter, Elijah Hicks, they've kind of hindered us from being able to go out and get better players because we've kind of hinged on those too much. And you shouldn't ever hinge too much on Dominique Robinson, 5th round. Tristan Ebner, we actually already cut him. Doug Kramer, center. Ja'Tyre Carter, who we've hung on to way too long. Elijah Hicks, who had a horrible year this year. We've hung on to them too long, but that's part of the rebuild process, and that's part of what's a struggle for Bears fans, is they expect too much too quickly when you're rebuilding. But when you're taking 5th, 6th, 7th round guys and you're expecting them to be starters, it doesn't really work that way. You've got to rebuild. And so this team has been in that process where we've had to use some of these lower level players, and now we can cycle some of these guys out. So here's the highlights of this draft. We have Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Braxton Jones. You can pause it here if you want. We've gone over, these are the stats from other videos I've done. Kyler Gordon had a really good year in my opinion. Passer rating allowed has come down. His PFF rank is up, and his grade is up. His solo tackles 47 to 6 missed tackles, which is really strong for a nickel. Jaquan Brisker, same thing, 80 tackles to 10 missed tackles, only 3 touchdowns allowed, which is coming down for him. 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 5 pass breakups. They rank him 54th out of 96 safeties total, but our strong safety. I see him as higher value than that. I think he's going to have a great third year. And Braxton Jones, who's getting a little bit of scrutiny from our own team, our own fans, I don't see it that way. We can easily go into this next year with Braxton being the starting left tackle, and I'm happy. Can we improve there? Yeah, but more importantly, if we go in with him as a starting left tackle, I'd like to see us have a really strong anchored swing tackle. If we end up with Joe Alt at 9, there's no way we pass up on that. Anyways, we've gone over that in our other videos. But to me, he's got a great pass block grade, great run block grade. Overall grade is strong. He doesn't allow a lot of sacks, hits, or hurries. His percentage is low. .076 is, that would be 7.6, 7 or 8 out of every 100 pass blocking opportunities. He allows a sack, hit, or a hurry. It's not all three, a sack, hit, or a hurry. So maybe he's allowing a hurry 7 out of every 100 plays. That's not horrible. I'd like to see it come down a little bit, but really, 5th-round pick, he's excelling. To me, he's a starting left tackle in the NFL. Where we have players that are still on the Bears, you see all the guys listed here. 3 starters and some backs. 4 starters if you count Trenton Gill, which we do, a starting punter. We move on to players not on the Bears anymore. Zachary Thomas, he's a backup left tackle for the LA Rams. Treston Ebner's a free agent still. Players that are expendable. To me, these are players that should not be on the team anymore. As we move through the rebuild phase and get into a solid contender phase, which is this year. We are contenders this year. This should be a year that we are winning the division. We should have that expectation. Last year, it was rebuild mode. Did we want 9, 10, 11, 12 wins? Yes. But was it expected for us to win the division? No, not at all. Is it expected for us to win the division this year? No, not expected, but it's not out of the realm of what could be expected. This is a year that we should, the players all should the media, should the fans expect us to win the division? Well, not with where the Lions have been and not with how the Packers improve. We shouldn't expect it, but it's definitely possible if we make the right moves. So Dominic Robinson, Doug Kramer, Ja'Tyre Carter, Elijah Hicks, I think they all should be off the team if we make the right moves and we build the right depth. All 4 of those guys should be gone from the Bears roster. All right, so there's part 1. As we move into part 2, that's going to be out of the 2022 season coming into the 2023 draft. But this one's important. I'll start with the next one with this one as well. As we were midway into the season, as the trade deadline approached, the Bears traded Roquan Smith away, got a 2023 second and a 2023 5th-round pick, and we ate his contract for the rest of the year, helping us get out of salary cap but get those picks. A lot of people are critical of this one. Here's what I want to point out with this. They say Roquan and Tremaine Edmunds were basically the same contract, but we ended up getting a lower value middle linebacker. Well, that's not true because Tremaine Edmunds' contract is super favorable to the Bears, and you would not have gotten that from Roquan Smith in the negotiations that he was making with the Bears. Roquan Smith wanted more guarantees, wanted more money. Tremaine Edmunds, if he doesn't work out after this next year, the Bears can cut him and have a very favorable salary cap situation, and I actually think we're leaning towards that if he doesn't improve. And we have a deep linebacker room that I'm really impressed with. Noah Sewell coming in and Jack Sanborn, obviously, and TJ Edwards, who I think was one of the best linebackers in the league this year. So this was how we transition into the next video, which we'll have out in the next day or two. It'll be part 2, the 2023 draft and where those players are now. But it's all going to lead up to this draft, 2024 draft, where we're in great shape. And that's all because of King Poles and what he's done for this team. All right, so that's it for our recap of the Bears draft picks under Ryan Poles, Part 1, 2002 class. Thanks for tuning in. Please let me know your thoughts and comments below. Hopefully this helps explain where the Bears have been in the past and where we're heading, because when you see the whole picture, it helps to understand where the team is and why we're making the moves we are and help fans be a little bit more patient in the process of what's happening and where we're heading, all leading to the George Halas Trophy for us winning the NFC Championship and then ultimately onto the Lombardi. Super Bowl 59, baby. All right, till next time, bear down.